Welcome back to Dead to the Co. This is Chris.
This is Ian.
Ian, how's it going? It's been a minute since we hopped on the pod.
Yeah, pretty good. Been busy. You know, Baltimore Orioles kind of led me down, but I got these tunes to pick me back up.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to the Orioles Nationals game tomorrow, actually, in DC with my cousins, so that should be fun. I wanted to ask, you have a tape, right? You have like or not a record player. What is it called? A tape
But I have
player?
both. I have a record player and I have a cassette player. Yeah.
Cassette player. I'm so dumb. Um, so cassette player, have you done any do you have a Grateful Dead tape yet?
No, I wasn't even thinking about that when I there's like a record shop I go to. They had a lot of like I got the band. I showed that in one episode. I got Allman Brothers. They had like stuff like that, but I don't think they had any Grateful Dead. I'll have to check next time.
Yeah, speaking of Allman Brothers, I was doing a little bit of my own deep dive on O'Teal this past weekend, and I think we need to do an episode fully on O'Teal because he's had such an interesting career with the Allman Brothers, with Tedeschi Trucks Band, which I didn't even realize that he was involved with them at one point. So we need to have a deep dive
Yeah.
episode on O'Teal at some point.
Yeah, he doesn't still play with okay, because I know the brothers just played a couple nights ago as of recording because it's I forget that it's like the Suns are the main guys now.
Well, he did play with them during that.
Oh, you did? Okay. Yeah, it
I
was like I don't know like what the occasion was off the top of my head, but it was a pretty big deal. It was like a anniversary or something, I think, because they had like a bunch of people come back for it, I think.
Yeah, can you imagine going from playing with the Allman Brothers, the current iteration, and then to Dead and Company later that week at Sphere? Like he just completely just that's so
Yeah.
cool. That's so cool. Um,
Yeah, I think it's always interesting, like how much a touring musician has in their head in terms of songs, and like we think of like these guys playing in Dead and Co, like knowing all like the Grateful Dead catalog and all the covers that come with it. And then to also have like the whole Allman Brothers catalog in your head is pretty sick.
I was thinking that same thing. I don't know how they do it. That is so impressive. That yeah, we definitely need to do a deep dive on O'Teal. But tonight we're going to be talking about night two at Fiddler's Green Amphitheatre in Englewood, Colorado. Last episode, I think I said it was in Morrison, but it's actually Englewood. Um, this was an awesome show. Just high level thoughts at first, and then we'll get into each song like we usually do. I preferred Ian this show over the last episode that we did, the night one.
That's good because I didn't I mean I thought the show was fine. I'm glad that I feel like we're always on the same page and always have the same preferences, so it's good to have a little bit of debate now. Because I thought the show was fine, but I don't think it's anywhere close to the show before. So
And that's totally fair. I just think the selection of songs just were more of the songs that are kind of in my alley. Um, so I really liked it, but I did like both shows. I thought overall a really solid two-night set, but we can talk a little bit about how it compares to night one as we go through. Um, but yeah, overall, just a really solid weekend in Colorado. I don't even know if it was a weekend. I'm assuming it was, but it totally could not have been.
yeah,
But let's get
I
into it.
think it was.
So we start with Aiko Aiko, and this song, whenever they start playing it, I always get it confused with Women Are Smarter. I always think it's gonna be like the beat's the exact same.
Yeah, yeah, that's like the classic, and sometimes they'll draw it out, so you don't really know. So this was a Saturday show, as we'll discuss at the end. So Friday, Saturday, in 2021. I like as an opener. I feel like either one of two. It's either like an opener or a closer. I think we've had it as an encore before. In Hershey, I believe it was the encore. But it might have been the Settee closer. I don't remember off the top of my head. Um, but I wanted to ask you about this. Do you like it early or late? Like, do you have a preference for where this is in the set?
Um, I like it early. I I think it's like a fun opener because it's like loose and you can get into it and it kind of kicks off the show nice and lighthearted. I think later on I'm looking for some heavier hits and I don't think I'd be as satisfied with like Aiko Aiko as an encore. I can't remember if we got that or Quinn the Eskimo. It may have been Quinn,
Oh, it might have been Quinn the Eskimo. Yeah.
but similar vibes. Aiko Aiko kind of has like this Cajun vibe to it. I was watching this show with my dad actually, and he helped point that out to me. Um, but overall, it is a fun song. It has like a little bit of like French influence, and I think, yeah, I would prefer it earlier on in the show.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. And I think it's funny how I was kind of thinking the same thing about it being loose and like kind of like getting the um, crowd into it. I
Hmm.
like John did this cool like double stop thing. I didn't write down the time, but I liked his guitar. It's around like halfway through, I want to say. I also thought it was funny that like this is one of the songs I think this is known, and there's gonna be a couple coming up where it's the same. Where Bob knew most of the lyrics. He knew like almost all the lyrics. It wasn't him like messing up the lyrics, but like he didn't quite know how to like pace the lyrics with the beat. Um, which is a couple songs where like normally songs that like Jerry did in the Grateful Dead that he does now that he kind of like doesn't know exactly. It's just like not a pairing that works for him, which I thought was funny. Do you have anything else you want to say about the opener here?
No, I think you covered it. That's funny insight that you have there. We go into Shakedown Street, and this was fun. It was pretty groovy. I don't have a ton on. Let me check my notes. Honestly, it's been like a little bit over a week since I watched this show, and I've been re-listening to parts of it throughout the week, to try and like keep it fresh in my mind because we tried to do this episode earlier, but life got around to us. But yeah, I mean, Shakedown Street is always a good song in the first set. Sometimes they play it later, but I was glad it wasn't the opener, but it fit fine for me in slot number two.
Yeah, well, what I was gonna say on Ika Ika is like, and I feel like this is a common thing that they do is the first two songs have two roles. One is to like get the crowd loosed up and into it, and one to get like the band into it. And I
Mm,
felt like this is a good pair where Aiko Aiko got is kind of like lighthearted, got the crowd into it, and Shakedown is like we're gonna figure out like how the jams are gonna go the rest of the show. We're gonna figure out what we want to do. And I think that's kind of like what they do in every show for the first, I'd say maybe like the first, two out of three of the three songs. I love the extended outro here. I feel like
yeah.
that's probably one of my favorite part of Shakedown is when they draw out the outro for like a minute or two.
Yeah, I thought O'Teal sounded really cool. There was just one point where his bass was just pounding, and it was just pretty sweet. So yeah, Shakedown Street. I like the way you look at it as like getting the band loosened up. Because this is a familiar song for them. They have a lot of room to play around. Like I would assume this one's fairly easier for them to play just by the amount of times they play it. So yeah, comfort, like getting loose. And then we go into Ship of Fools, which I gained a new respect for Ship of Fools during this song. Admittedly has never been a top song of mine, but I'm not quite sure why because I actually really enjoyed this rendition. I think it's really fun that Oteil and John just switch off singing verses. And I actually walked away from this like, all right, I'm gonna listen to Ship of Fools more.
Yeah, I love this song. I mean, really great from Oteil. I think love it whenever he has a song. I I think I'm trying to think of any other songs that John and Oteil share the verses. I think overall the songs that two people share verses, and normally it's like John and Bob, but John and Jeff sometimes. I love that. I think it's great, like meshing with like different band members. John,
Yeah.
I think this. the first signal that John is like feeling himself this show. You know, you could say maybe coming off of a great show the day before, kind of like feeling that energy. I liked how he kind of like, you know, he gets like when he's really into the verses, he like kind of forgets that there's the audience there, and I feel like he's so like zoned in on the verses. He had this one moment in this one, like during this the first time he says "sink and drown." I don't know if you remember it, but he kind of like repeats it back to himself, kind of like in a bluesy way. Um, he's like the first time it's like you know like sink and drown like a little drawn out, and then like by like kind of like off the mic goes sink and drown like says like sink and drown. I thought it was
Yeah.
really fun.
I've caught him
So
done yeah, I've caught him doing that a few times, and that is always like I know exactly what you're saying. He is very bluesy. But yeah, this song has some blues influence in it for sure. Um, and I like the imagery of the song, you know, the captain, the ship. Uh, they have a cool visual at the sphere of like this big ship underwater. That's what it reminds me of now. But yeah, overall, a good song here to follow Shakedown Street and Iko Iko. And then we go into Brown Eyed Women. And Ian, this song is always good, but I have to say I thought this was a great rendition of Brown Eyed Women.
yeah, I thought I thought it was good. I really like Jeff and John going back and forth a bit, you know, towards the end. I think that was the most notable part of it for me.
Same, yeah. And there's a reason why I'm wearing my Go Johnny Go shirt right now that I got off Shakedown Street is because I thought this show he was just absolutely excellent. And not even from terms of just shredding, but technique. And I think I really got this from watching the video. I don't have the ear tuned, like, I don't have the ear to pick it up really necessarily, but watching it, and not even necessarily on Brown Eyed Women, but I'll get to something a little bit later on in the set that he did. But he was just using so many different guitar techniques, whether that's, and I don't know them off the name of my head, but you know, he's not just picking and shredding, but he's like chucking and he's like palm muting and he's doing little things with his pinky and like he's just doing so much that is just like a master class in guitar work. And I really noticed it this show more than we have in others. Like we've listened to plenty of shows, we've watched plenty of shows, and this show just really stood out to me in terms of the technique that he was bringing. So I had to fit that in somewhere, and
Yeah.
it just came up here. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I say it every episode we do, but I really do need to start watching instead of just listening, so I pick up on stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have the different perspectives of someone who just kind of listened and someone who watched because we do pick up on notice things when doing that. But yeah, I would highly recommend it to you and any listeners. You know, we're not sponsored by Nugs. I wish we were. We would be a much bigger podcast. But it only cost me $15 a month and I can watch like unlimited catalog of Dead and Company and other bands as well. So it's definitely worth it. Do you have any other comments on Brown Eyed Women?
No, you want to move on to the next song?
Yeah, into Crazy Fingers, which we've definitely talked about before on the pod. Um, I really obviously like the opening of Crazy Fingers, but during the song, there's also like some jazzy inflections, and the ending is really beautiful as well. So, Crazy Fingers, while not one of my favorites, I thought this was a good placement. It kind of slows it down a bit after Brown Eyed Women. Um, like a mid first set kind of like pacing, it works for me. So overall, I thought this was a good placement and a good song.
Yeah, I not to retread on some things we've said about this before. I think this was another song that is an example of Bob not really having the timing right. It feels
Mm,
like he's always either rushing or too early to the end of some of the lyrics. Again, another song that Jerry did, that Jerry sung in Grateful Dead that Bob does now. Um, I do want to hear a couple more versions of it, see if I can start to like hone in on the good parts of this song.
right, right. So I'm just looking back at the previous show to do a little bit of cross comparison. So last show by this point we had Good Times Roll, Feel Like a Stranger, Alabama Getaway, Me and My Uncle, and It Hurts Me Too. So now that I'm looking at them back to back, last show was pretty damn good in terms of the set
Yeah.
list. Um, but it hasn't hit my favorite part of the night yet for this show. Um, so we'll give it time and we'll see if my opinion changes by the end of this episode. But my first reaction was that this show was just awesome. Um, and if you go to deadandcodb.com, this show actually has a higher rating in terms of what the audience thinks. So you might actually be the one, Ian, who is on the
All right. Well,
in the minority.
I'm also looking at the streams on Spotify, and the first night has like double the streams on every song. So
Okay. So maybe yeah, maybe
what
this
the
did.
people think versus what they're actually listening to.
Yeah, I don't know if this is like 5 votes or like 500. I'm guessing it's on the lower side. Um, we go out of Crazy Fingers into Here Comes Sunshine, and this rocked. This was an awesome version. Um, I thought that again, John slayed on this in particular, but so did Jeff and
Mhm.
O'Teal as well. I really enjoyed the jam in this. For some reason, this stood out to me. This Here Comes Sunshine. So if you're looking for a good one to listen to, check out this shows because I thought that this stood out.
Yeah, I thought this was a good version. I generally like Here Comes Sunshine in the first set.
Mm,
Um, I I don't know if I don't think this actually was intended, but I picked up on it. I was kind of waiting for it to happen, but I got like a little bit of a China Cat teaser in this.
hmm.
They played that last night. I was like trying to pick it up. You know, like when you first start to like, oh, like are they doing like are they gonna go in the China Cat riff? I don't. They never really did. But I was like, I don't know. That was my main note for this song. Like I had it around like 3 minutes 40 seconds, and
Okay. I have heard them tease China Cat during this song, so that doesn't completely surprise me. I almost wonder, since they didn't fully go into it, if it was kind of accidental. Like, I could see them like leaning that direction and then pulling back and being like, "Ooh, not tonight. We did that last night, you know?" Um,
yeah.
I'll have to check that out. So around 3 minutes and 40 seconds of Here Comes Sunshine, I'll check it out. Because I have heard them do that with that song. And then we go into Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, another song that I associate with you, Ian. You know what? That would be a fun episode is Ian songs. And I just talk about all the songs I associate with you. I think you have a hat, right? Going Down the
Yeah,
Road Feeling Bad.
yeah. I have like the initialism GD GDTRFB hat.
Yeah. You know, this thing about this song, there's some songs that have good lyrics, good vocals, and good guitar work. Well, there's not many that have all that. And I think Going Down the Road has all of that. The lyrics are very like traditional imagery. I don't want to be treated this old way. The guitar work is like, like most of their songs has good work. And then there's good vocals where multiple performers are singing, and not to like disparage other songs in the catalog, but like some songs have amazing guitar and like that's the main focus of the song. Some songs are better with the lyrics and that's the main focus, like Broke Down Palace as an example. But Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, it kind of just checks all the marks for me. It's traditional, it rocks, and it's fun, you know?
Yeah, so I really love this song. It's one of the more common, like traditional American songs that they play. I mean, this song was decades old by the time the Grateful Dead started playing it, which I always think is cool. Um, I'm gonna repeat this point that I made, usually with the other song, but I really love the Not Fade Away, Going Down the Road, Feeling Bad pairing. I mean, going back to like my original foray into the Grateful Dead with Skull and Roses.
Right.
Um, and we just never get them together before. Normally it's playing like Not Fade Away, like end of the second set. And then this time we have Going Down the Road Feeling Bad, alone. But yeah, I agree. This is like a really great song. I love American songs that don't have like a known author. I think it's really cool. And also, I think it's funny just going back to the show and the set list, how normally for set lists you could see like where the set break is going to be before listening to the show. At least I do. Like I look through all the songs, um, and I could tell before I even started the show that it was going to be between this song and the next song. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I like your point about going down the road feeling bad and not fade away. They do need to bring that back. Um, it would be kind of cool to see the first set end with going down the road feeling bad and then the second set end with not fade away. That would be kind of an interesting way to do it. But I agree, when the two songs are together, that's like a peak experience. So yeah, you can tell just by looking at the set list that this would be the end of set one. Um, and it's a good way to end it. And we get a set break, and I don't have any trivia for you, unfortunately. I did not prepare that ahead of time.
Uh, let me, yeah, we'll have to come up with a list.
Um, let me let me do a quick Google search, Grateful Dead trivia, because I think it's fun to have something. Um, okay. How well do you know the Grateful Dead? Take this quiz now. This is gonna be hard. Take the quiz. All right, Ian. These are too easy. Let me find a hard one. It was like what name the album Friend of the Devil is on, and it's like, oh, American Beauty, you know?
We can
Uh,
find one and do it next show, I think.
no, I got one because it
Okay.
relates to the next song, the start of set two. And this might be easy for you, but it's what album features the song Truckin' and was released in 1970?
What?
I think it's not what I thought it was. So, oh, no, it is what I thought it was. The options are American Beauty, Anthem of the Sun. How do you say it? Axo, Moxo, however you say that. And Working
Amongst
Man's
Amongst
Dead. Yeah, or Working Man's Dead.
them. It's it's American Beauty, right?
Yes, good job, Ian. That's hard on the spot. Next time you do trivia to me, because I always get to ask the question, but you're
Yeah,
the one
I'll
who
come
has
up.
to answer then.
Yeah, I only know because we're still like a little bit removed of the 50th anniversary. So I know when the albums because I knew Working Man's Dead came out like just a year after, right? So it doesn't line up.
Yeah. No, good job. All right, so we go into Truckin' to start set two. My dad called this immediately from like the first note that they played, so just a shout out to him for doing that. Um, I always love the Truckin' with the long intro.
Yeah.
Sometimes you burn kind of right into it, but when you can really build up and you start to piece together that they're playing Truckin', that's like the best experience for me.
Yeah, I mean that was the first part of my note for this song too, is that's why I love it. That's the first song in the set because you get the long intro.
Hmm.
This always seems to happen, like whenever I really like a version of a song, it happens to be like 17 minutes, which this one is almost 18 minutes. Um,
Mm.
so I wrote in my notes that 17 minutes is the perfect length for a Grateful Dead song. That it just like when it's that long, it's gonna be a banger.
That is spoken like a true deadhead right there. Um, I noticed that John teased the other one during trucking. Did you catch that?
No, I didn't catch that. I was looking out for teases in this show. I didn't pick up on that.
You'll definitely hear it if you listen back and just like pay attention. It's probably like 4 bars, but he did the dun 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 dun.
Okay.
Um, and that was funny because they played that, of course, the night before. So maybe they were doing a little bit of callbacks to night one because you mentioned China Cat earlier. Um, and also on the video, it's very clear as day, a little less noticeable on the audio, but John really fucks up the transition between uh Truckin' and Viola Lee Blues. Like he thought they were going
Okay.
into it, so he like slams like the
Oh,
intro chord to Violi, and
yeah.
everyone else like looks
Well,
around
that's
and you see him going, my bad, and he's like laughing embarrassed. So like he actually, even
yeah.
though
And
I'm
that's not like one you can like play off. So yeah,
no,
that's probably a good him just being like yeah, that was wrong.
yeah, it's only like the second time I've seen. Funny enough, both times were him. One time I saw him mess up so bad that he took his guitar off. I forget which show it was, but he took his guitar off and like put it on the ground. And he was like, "I'm sorry." So that's like the second time I've seen them like mess up like noticeably. And funny enough, both times were him. But yeah, Viola Blues. This is a good, groovy blues song. This was really fun because, again, points to watching the show. John took off his capo and was using it as a slide during the jam section of
That's
this
cool.
song.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I picked up. I mean, I definitely picked up on some like different like playings of this stuff. I didn't really see that specifically though. I really liked. I loved the 15-minute song following the 18-minute song. Like I thought that was really fun
Hmm.
to start out the second set, like setting the tone pretty heavily. And also, it's funny that you mentioned him messing up the transition because I thought his tone going into the song, like the right time, was
Yeah.
like really cool and a little different than what he's done before. Um, like it felt like very like heavy rock more
Yeah.
than some other. So,
Yeah. And that's really cool. I didn't really pick up on that, but I liked what you say. Um, Viola Blues. This is like, if I'm not mistaken, a jug band song. So it goes all the way back to before they were the Grateful Dead. Um, they were a jug band. Bob talks about this a lot. Um, and so I have to imagine Viola Blues was in their canon since probably the formation of the band.
yeah,
I might be wrong. Maybe they picked it up later, but this was a song that was played by jug bands like way back in the day. So just so cool to see that that is still being played in 2025 and that it looks completely different than it did probably nearly a century ago. Um, and that's what I love about the Grateful Dead and Dead and Company now is that they're just keeping this American music, like we said, for going down the road feeling bad. They're just keeping these tunes alive. And what other bands can you say that about? Like, of course, there are some others, and we mentioned the Allman Bros, but even to that degree, they didn't really probably go deep into like American folklore as the Dead do.
yeah. I think that maybe that's the theme of this show. That I was trying to figure out like what the theme was, but yeah, it's really cool playing songs that date back so much.
Yeah. All right, and then we get the classic and welcomed trio of Help on the Way, Slipknot, and Franklin's Tower. I figure we can just kind of do them all together. Um,
Yeah,
this is a song where sometimes Dead and Company experiment and they go Help on the Way, Slipknot, China Cat, or like something like that. But I don't think anything beats these three together in terms of like song continuation. Um, Help on the Way is just excellent. It's kind of dark, it's edgy, it's groovy. The way John sings it, I actually really like. Um,
yeah,
Slipknot was like, for lack of better terms, really slippery sounding. And then Franklin's Tower, I came up with a new term that I'm going to coin, and it's called high groove. And it's when the band is just rolling so hard that they're just like hitting on all cylinders. I was like, man, they're in just this like high groove
yeah.
right now, like a high groove state. Um, so that's my new thing that I'm going to try and coin. But I thought these three were really fun.
Yeah, it seemed pretty no nonsense. Like they went through the first two songs like pretty quickly. which I
Mhm.
thought was interesting. I guess they kind of had to, given the two songs before were kind of long. This is what I thought the theme of the show was a little when I was writing my notes was like pretty heavy for Boots for Allah in this show
Mhm.
with these three crazy fingers in the first set. Um, but yeah, I think between last show and this show, we kind of hit all like the major song pairings and triplets.
Huh, that's a good point. Yeah, I think we did. Um, we go into drums in space. These I listened to the full in full. Um, as far as analysis goes, I'm having a tough time placing it in the lineup of the other drums in space we listened to. But hey, I enjoyed it. It was trippy. The drums were pounding. It did what it set out to do. I thought that they were pretty on par for the course for drums in space.
Yeah, think I think we just need to do one episode of all drums in space, and that way we can compare them like one to one,
Right.
um, and have a lot more time to them. Um, and this is another spot where I feel like to really appreciate drums in space, I need to watch the show. So I think this is another aspect where watching the show kind of benefits.
Yeah, I would say so. I think that makes sense. You get to see some of the more interesting things they do because sometimes they're like playing like the beam and like these cool instruments that you don't really pick up on a ton. So it is cool to watch it. Um, Space into Cumberland Blues, though, that is a fun pairing. And Cumberland Blues kind of has that Americana vibe to it as well. So I like what we're picking up on theme wise here. I don't think it's as solid as Space into the Dark Star reprise that we got last episode. That last episode, last show was when we were in the middle of that sandwich, remember, of the other one and
Yeah,
Dark Star. So this was a little more like a little less traditional, or not traditional, but how am I trying to say it? It was less structured. Um,
yeah,
but Cumberland Blues is a fun song to come into out of space because the pace gets picked up. Um, and I thought this was a heater on Franklin's Tower and Cumberland Blues. I noted that Jeff was just crushing it, like out of his
yeah.
mind. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of late, I guess to your point too, coming out of space,
Hmm.
that late to play this song. Um, Kind of similar vibes as Franklin's Tower, I think, in terms
Yeah,
of like not what was your term that I'm gonna try to use
high
it.
groove.
High groove. Yeah, it's not really a jam necessarily, but they definitely get in that high groove and are playing like the riffs of the song like with a really good pace.
Yes,
Um
it's all about the pace. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
yeah. So I do think this is another song that goes with Franklin's Tower in that category.
Yeah. And then we go into Stella Blue, which is a beautiful song. It's a nice Bob song. Did Bob always sing this song with the Dead, or did Jerry
No,
sing this?
it was Joe. And I'll give Bob props on this one. I kind of was shitting on him for a couple songs earlier. He can still belt it. At his age, he can still belt this song, which is great. And it kind of goes to my point of like there's some songs where I feel like he needs to play it because he's the one in the band that fits that role. And there's some songs that I think he really fits a lot better, and this is one of them.
Hmm.
Also on note, for vocals, great backup vocals in this version, which is often the case for Stella Blue. I think that's what makes a good Stella Blue is, like when you try in the back,
Hmm.
like all the other band
Yeah.
members, which is cool.
Yeah. I might re-listen to that one tonight. That's a nice way to put it. And then we go into one more Saturday night. So yes, it was a Saturday
Saturday
show.
Night Show. Yeah.
Never miss a Saturday show.
Yeah. Do
This
you,
this was fun.
I say this every time on this song. Do you think he still likes playing it?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, who's to say like what the tolerance is for songs like this? Um,
Yeah. I think so because this has always been, unless I'm just totally wrong, this has always been a Bob song.
for
So
sure.
yeah, so I think that he enjoys it, but who knows, like you said. Um, and it's fun because I was watching this on a Saturday, so it was a welcome surprise.
Yeah.
But I actually really enjoy One More Saturday Night because it is just like it knows its place, it knows its time, and when it's time for that song, you just gotta lean in. You have no choice.
You know it's gonna happen, so
You might
you
as
might
well
as
lean
well
into
enjoy
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's more fun than a near 80-year-old man screaming at the top of his lungs? Then
Yeah, you can still do it. You can still build it.
you can still belt it. And then we end with Broke Down Palace. And Ian, this might be cheesy. And good thing we didn't do this episode closer to when I watched the show because I told you I really liked it. I was riding high off this show. But I teared up during Broke Down Palace, man. I don't know what it was, but it just hit me.
Yeah, I mean it's a song that John does very well. Um, I think it was interesting tonal dynamic at the end to kind of like almost end on One More Saturday Night and then come in with a slower song.
True.
Um, but yeah, I this is one of the more underrated encores, I think.
Right. Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, to me, it's like a top five encore. I think I've said that before. But in terms of the general knowledge lexicon, I don't know the word, general consensus, maybe it is a little bit underrated. It's tough to say. Um, so yeah, overall, I thought this was an excellent show. Like I said, I preferred it over the night before. I'm gonna stick by that, but that's just me. That's just my preference of songs. I really enjoyed the heaters like Brown Eyed Women and Franklin's Tower and Cumberland Blues. The other show was a little more obscure, which I feel like does fall into your campion. So I'm glad that we got two shows that kind of represented both of our interests.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting pair of shows because I feel like they maybe were more distinct than I thought they were going to be before we went into it. Because I thought they would pair more, and they would play a song one night and follow up on it the next night, which I don't think they really did.
Right.
Um, so, but I think that kind of made them good and like made them their own distinct thing. And the amount of people that go to both shows is a lot for this band. So
Right.
um, uh, so good that they got kind of two distinct ones.
Yeah. Well, follow us on Instagram at Dead to the Co, and we'll post the next show that we're going to review. We might do a special episode. We'll see, but we're running up on time here. So, Ian, it was great catching up, chalking Dead and Company, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.